Imagine being a teenager who never finished high school, yet successfully posed as a pilot, a doctor, and even a lawyer. Imagine cashing millions in forged checks while flying first class around the world, all before turning 21. This is not fictionettes, the real story of Frank Abagnale Jr., one of the most brilliant imposters in history. Frank Abagnale Jr.'s story begins not in the skies or in a courtroom, but in the quiet suburbs of New Rochelle, New York. Born in 1948, Frank grew up in a comfortable, middle-class family. His father, Frank Sr., was a successful businessman, while his mother, Paula, was a French immigrant. Two neighbors and friends, they appeared to be the perfect family. But like many stories of brilliance and rebellion, the seeds of chaos were sown at home. When Frank was just a teenager, his parents divorced, shattering the stability of his childhood. For Frank, this event became a turning point. The divorce not only split his family apart, but also left him restless, searching for identity and belonging. Without guidance, he turned to survival tactics that would evolve into some of the most daring cons ever pulled off. At the age of 16, with no real plan, he ran away from home, armed with little more than charm and a sharp mind. His first experiments in deception were small. Frank discovered he had a gift for manipulation when he altered his driver's license to make himself appear older. Soon after, he began writing checks on his own overdrawn account, floating money he didn't have. But where most teenagers would have been caught instantly, Frank had something different. He had confidence. He walked into banks with such authority that tellers rarely questioned him. The realization struck him: if he could look the part, people would believe him. This discovery fueled his imagination. Frank's first great disguise came when he noticed how much respect airline pilots commanded. They walked through airports with confidence, bypassing lines and receiving instant trust. To Frank, it was the perfect cover. He studied Pan Am pilots, took note of their uniforms, and even convinced an airline to sell him a used one by claiming he had lost his own. Dressed as a pilot, Frank suddenly had access to the skies. He deadheaded or rode free on hundreds of flights across the country, charming flight attendants and earning the admiration of passengers. But Frank's scheme wasn't just about flying. His true brilliance lay in forging checks. He created fake Pan Am payroll checks, exploiting the trust banks placed in a respected airline. Over time, he cashed more than $2.5 million in fraudulent checks, a staggering sum for the 1960s. He was barely out of his teens, yet he lived like a millionaire, staying in luxury hotels, driving rental cars, and traveling the world. What made Frank's methods extraordinary was their simplicity. He didn't hack into systems or threaten violence. A confident smile, the right uniform, and a forged document were enough to open doors. Banks and businesses built on trust became his playground. As the FBI began closing in, Frank shifted roles again. He posed as a doctor in Georgia, faking medical credentials and supervising interns. Later, in Louisiana, he passed the state bar exam after just weeks of study and briefly worked as a lawyer. To outsiders, these achievements seemed impossible, but to Frank, they were simply a matter of performance. His photographic memory, quick wit, and calm demeanor made his deceptions seamless. But even the most brilliant plans cannot last forever. By the late 1960s, Frank was on the radar of law enforcement agencies worldwide. The FBI assigned Special Agent Joseph Shee to track him, beginning a cat-and-mouse chase that spanned continents. Frank, meanwhile, continued his jet-setting lifestyle, always one step ahead. His luck ran out in 1969, when French police finally arrested him after he attempted to cash a forged check in Montpellier. Prison in France was a far cry from luxury hotels. The conditions were harsh, and Frank's health quickly deteriorated. After serving time in France and Sweden, he was eventually extradited to the United States. There, he faced trial for his countless crimes. At just 21 years old, he was sentenced to 12 years in federal prison. For most, this would have been the end of the story. But Frank Abagnale was not like most people. Behind bars, his reputation as a brilliant imposter followed him. Prison officials and law enforcement began to see the value in his mind. If one young man could exploit the system so effectively, perhaps he could help prevent others from doing the same. In 1974, after serving only 5 years, Frank was released on the condition that he work with the FBI to combat fraud. This unusual arrangement marked the beginning of Frank's transformation. Instead of running from the law, he was now helping to enforce it. He joined the FBI as a consultant, sharing insights into how criminals forged checks, created false identities, and exploited trust. His advice was so valuable that he remained affiliated with the Bureau for decades, shaping fraud prevention strategies that are still in use today. Outside the FBI, Frank built a new career. He founded Abagnale and Associates, a consulting firm specializing in fraud prevention. Banks, corporations, and government agencies hired him to train employees in spotting scams. The same charisma that once allowed him to con millions now captivated audiences eager to learn. He traveled the country, giving lectures and seminars, earning respect not as a criminal but as an authority. Frank also became an author, writing books that explored his life and offered guidance on security. His most famous work, Catch Me if you can, recounted his teenage exploits in vivid detail. The book became a bestseller and later inspired a Broadway play and a Hollywood film. Directed by Steven Spielberg and starring Leonardo DiCaprio as Frank and Tom Hanks as Agent She. The 2002 movie cemented his place in popular culture. But beyond the entertainment value, Frank's story carries deeper lessons. His crimes highlight the fragility of trust in institutions. He proved that people often accept appearances without question, especially when those appearances are backed by symbols of authority. A uniform, a title, or even a confident smile can override suspicion. This insight remains relevant in today's digital age, where online scams exploit the same psychology. Frank has often reflected on his past with a mix of pride and regret. He acknowledges the ingenuity of his schemes, but also recognizes the harm they caused. Banks lost money, employees were humiliated, and lives were disrupted. He has consistently emphasized that while his story may sound glamorous, the reality of living on the run was lonely and exhausting. Behind the confidence was a young man searching for belonging and identity. That search, in many ways, defines Frank's legacy. His impersonations gave him respect he craved, but could not find at home. As a pilot, he felt admired. As a doctor, he felt important. As a lawyer, he felt capable. Each role filled a void left by a broken family. His brilliance lay not only in his ability to deceive, but in his understanding of what people wanted to see. Today, Frank Abagnale Jr. is regarded as one of the world's foremost experts on fraud prevention. His lectures continue to draw large audiences, and his insights help protect millions from scams. His transformation from imposter to educator is rare in true crime history redemption arc that underscores the possibility of change. And yet, the fascination with his past remains. His story forces us to question the nature of trust and authority. How often do we assume someone is legitimate simply because of their appearance? How often do we overlook small inconsistencies because we don't want to doubt a confident figure? These questions are what make Frank's story not just a tale of crime, but a mirror reflecting our own vulnerabilities. For viewers of this channel, his journey is a perfect example of illegal brilliance, mind that used intellect in the wrong direction, creating some of the most audacious crimes in modern history. His brilliance was undeniable, but so were the consequences. So, as you think about Frank Abagnale Jr., ask yourself, was he a genius criminal who outsmarted the system, or simply a lonely boy who stumbled into deception as a way to survive? And more importantly, in today's world of digital scams and online impersonations, are we any less vulnerable than those bankers and airline clerks in the 1960s. If you found this story fascinating, make sure to like this video, subscribe to Illegal Brilliance, and hit the notification bell. Every week, we uncover stories of incredible minds who use their intelligence for illegal ends. Because sometimes, the most brilliant ideas take the darkest paths.